Hey there, Magic players. Barry White here from MagicUntapped.com and Magic Untapped right here on YouTube. Joining me is a longtime Magic the Gathering artist, Matt Stewart, who has been making art for the game since around 2008. Matt, thank you very much for joining us here on Magic Untapped. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me, Barry.
So, like I said, you've been making artwork for Magic the Gathering since the late aughts, but your love of fantasy art predates that. Because as I was told, you are a huge J.R.R. Tolkien fan. Can you tell me a little
Yes.
bit about just you growing up with Tolkien stories?
Well, initially, my initial interest in fantasy was Dungeons and Dragons. I had friends that we played Dungeons and Dragons, and I always loved the pictures and the modules, and I used to take them and copy them and draw my own characters and all that stuff. And my father, who was also a Tolkien reader, he he saw me drawing all these fantasy characters, and he gave me a copy of The Hobbit and said, "You might like this." And that was in about the eighth grade or so. And I loved it. I loved The Hobbit. I devoured it. And then I read The Lord of the Rings. And since then, I've always been a Tolkien fan.
And use some of that fandom in your professional artwork. I understand you've done a lot of work for Middle Earth Enterprises and Tangential, including the old Lord of the Rings card game from yesteryear.
Yeah, I did a bunch of module covers for them for Fantasy Flight. Like The Voice of Saruman and a Grey Havens piece and a few others.
And how did that experience, now that we've had a few Tolkien sets and Magic the Gathering, most recently The
Yeah.
Hobbit, how did that experience prepare you for making Hobbit-esque and Tolkien-esque artwork that would be true to the source material and make the old man himself proud?
Well, I guess it's just balancing out what you like about Tolkien and trying to um, find what really draws you to it. A lot of For me, it's a lot of like the scenery and the nature, and trying to fit that in with what the game wants, like what it serves the function of the card, but also with, for example, with Magic, the Magic set for Tolkien stuff is, yeah, it's Tolkien, but it's also Tolkien as seen through the lens of Magic the Gathering. So it has to kind of satisfy both. So you want to still have that hit that Magic vibe for things.
And of course, part of doing that is you work through the art director for the set over at Wizards of the Coast. Is there any involvement with Middle Earth Enterprises or the Tolkien estate directly to you as an artist, or is everything through the art director?
Well, when with Magic, yeah, everything is through the art director. So it's, you're using the style guides that they provide, and that's all been probably been approved by the Tolkien estate and everything. So
Is that experience making this art for the Hobbits? We'll talk about Hobbit specifically since it's the most recent one to come out. Is that any different than making just normal traditional Magic artwork?
no, it's fairly similar outside of the sort of medium prohibition. Like most of the cards for the Universes Beyond stuff has to be digital. Um, I generally paint in oils for most of my stuff, but I have the ability to do digital. Digital, I work in my preliminary process a lot digitally, so it's familiar to me. So I can produce a finished illustration digitally. That was probably the biggest difference, would be that. But in terms of the way, from commission to approvals and everything, the process, it's basically the same as working for um, the regular Magic cards. Outside of, say, initially for the Lord of the Rings stuff, we were getting more time to do it. Like it was sort of something I could do in between other Magic conditions, commissions. But this time it was sort of on the regular schedule track. So, but yeah, it's generally just sketches and approval and things like that.
And this most recent time, you illustrated the card "An Unexpected Party,"
Yes.
which, as you look at the art, of course, you have Bilbo right there in the middle, but surrounded by a party of dwarves, really just having a party, playing instruments, making mirth.
Yeah.
Can you send me through the process of creating this piece of artwork for Magic the Gathering's The Hobbit?
Well, initially they send you an art description. It's sort of a short paragraph describing what's going on. For this one, they had only really asked for Bilbo, Balin, Gandalf, and a few of the dwarves playing instruments. I could take my pick, but because I'm a fan and I'm probably kind of half nuts, I basically decided to try to fit everybody in it. So I did. I was able to fit all all the characters in 14 characters. I think it would be um and so yeah, like they and try to get them to play the right instruments from the book and everything, which ones are playing flutes, which ones are playing clarinets, etc. So but yeah, so they send me an art description, and then from there I come up with a rough idea and then send them a digital sketch. Basically, well, for me, but what I did was I shot some reference for myself posing and an accumulated reference of other, people playing medieval instruments. I tried to make the instruments look medieval or as if they would be in Middle Earth, whether it's medieval or not. But, and then I usually, when I combine all that, I basically send the art director a sketch and they approve it or they ask for changes. And then from there, you go to the finish and paint the finish. Um,
In this case, how did that go? Was there a lot of back and forth, or did you get it right the first time? Or
I got it right the first time. There were some small changes, like, something about like, generally it has to do with like, you know, somebody's hair isn't shaggy enough or something like that. Can you add a little bit more to that? But there were no real major, changes, on that one.
and as a long time, as you said it, Tolkien fanboy, kind of
Yeah.
crazed fan, how satisfying was it to work on this piece and get all of these characters into it?
Well, this is one of my favorite scenes in the book. Again, like it was one of those scenes that grabbed me reading The Hobbit when I was in the eighth grade. Because it's that scene is, you know, Bilbo getting caught up in the song of the dwarves, and it's the long dormant Tookish side of his nature being awakened by their song and the poetic about the fur and the fire and the trees and things like that, and the desire for adventure is coming out in Bilbo, so that scene kind of means a lot to me as a fantasy fan. So to be able to get that scene and to capture that atmosphere, the dark, after they sing their happy song about chipping the plates and all that stuff, they sing this dwarvish song about their lost home, and that whole sort of nostalgic or elegiac thing. That's what Tolkien is to me. So that scene captures it. So yeah, I love that scene. So I'm so happy. I was very happy when I got commissioned that card. So yeah, so it was like the chance to get to paint that for Magic was a real treat. So
And can I just say one of my favorite parts of this artwork? I'm sure everybody has a different favorite thing. My favorite thing is your use of light in this. The fire in the background, the
yeah.
backlight, and how it shines off of everybody's face and everybody's instrument, but in a way that feels organic and natural. How do you achieve such an effect?
Well, I usually like light. I usually at times it's me posing, and I usually just set up a light. With something like this, where it's such a multi-figured um, composition, you can't. It's not going to always be exactly how it would be in real life. It has to more work as a picture, so you kind of have to play around with the reality of it, so that it just looks authentic as opposed to being exactly the same. So you have to kind of give yourself a little bit of leeway with the lighting, but as long as it looks good and it looks right and the lighting is generally correct, it 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 it's believable. So, but yeah, it's usually like just using your like balancing out your light sources. For this it would be the fireplace. In real life fireplaces don't generate that much illumination, but you want to play with it, and it's almost like a movie in a sense that you have to kind of
Right.
play the reality of it. So
Right, reads visually. Yeah.
Yeah, it reads visually. So
So you had just this one card. If there was any other scene, if they said, "Hey, Matthew, we want you to do one other scene from The Hobbit. It could be any scene you want. You pick the card. What would be your let's call it your bucket list Hobbit scene that you would illustrate for Magic?
it would probably be something to do with Smaug. Maybe Bilbo, you know, talking to Smaug. You know, something like that, because that would be to me like the iconic scene. The other, the iconic scene, and he's the iconic dragon, so we'd love to see that. It's it's also the reference to like the Beowulf part of the story where he steals the cup or something like that. I mean, that would be the first one to come to mind for me, but there's so many scenes that are in that book that stand out to me, like the Great Goblin, or
Mm.
when they're getting rescued by the Eagles, or things like that would probably be, or Rivendell with the moon map and all that stuff would be great to do.
If,
It's a wealth of things to pick, so
oh, right. But if you did do Smaug, that would give you two pieces: the unexpected party for the beginning and Smaug
yeah,
for the
yeah,
end. And
yeah.
that brings us to the end of this interview. As we're wrapping up here, Matt, would you like to tell the viewers if they want to see more of your art and maybe get in contact with you? How can they find you online?
I'm online on, I have a website, matthew-stewart.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, Matthew Stewart, or Matt Stewart Illustration on Instagram. I post there my art all the time. I should post more, but that's basically, where I can be reached or seen. If you want to see more of my art, that's where you can see it. So.
Okay, Matt, thank you very much for taking part and chatting with me about Tolkien and artwork for the Magic the Gathering, the Hobbit set. Greatly appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, great. It's my pleasure. Thank you.